No, I think it was really like 95% great.
Go on. About that 5%.
I'm going to say what it is.
Okay, say
so
it.
yeah, I just can't help being bossy sometimes. I just
Oh my
get.
God, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I just can't help it. I get bossy, and I mansplain.
Yeah, right.
I'm owning it.
There it is.
And it always starts with 3 words. Here's the thing.
And
Welcome to the Rolling Stone studio live at South by Southwest. Let me tell you something. So if I were to tell you that we had Kevin Bacon, star of stage and screen, on today's episode, that would be enough for you to tune in. You'd be like, that's amazing. The guy's, he's a legend. Like, there's tons of stuff to talk about. Given the demeanor of the host, it's probably going to be a lot of deep dive conversations about the 1986 movie Quicksilver. This sounds amazing. But what if I were to then tell you it doesn't stop there? You would also get Kyra Sedgwick, an equally prolific actor and director. You probably know her from 7 seasons of The Closer, or maybe her arc on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but she's been in a million things. You'd be like, this is twice as good. I wonder if she's going to weigh in about the movie Quicksilver. She probably has opinions on it. So right there, you're there. You're right here. You're right where you need to be. But it gets even better because they have their kids here. Sosie Bacon, who you probably know from the movie Smile, and Travis Bacon, a musician who plays with the industrial metal band Contra Cult, are here as well. What are they all doing on this couch, you ask? They are at South by Southwest with a movie they made together as a family called
Quicksilver.
Family Mover.
Oh,
That's
I mean
so good.
Family
I'm
Movie.
sorry.
We'll get to Quicksilver later. Let's start with Family Movie. Now, for the benefit of people who do not know what this is about, let's give them an elevator pitch.
It's about a family that makes low-budget horror movies on their farm, and we ended up shooting it in Texas. So it's a farm in rural Texas, kind of outside of Austin. And I play the director, and my wife, played by Kyra, is an actress in it, and my daughter, played by Sosie, is an actor in it, and my son, played by Travis, mixes the sound and does the editing and composes for these low-budget horror movies that I have made several of. None of them have been good.
I mean, they seem a little low budget, these films inside these films, but I wouldn't say they're not good. You know, Roger Corman made low budget films. A couple of those
Exactly.
are really great.
I think that the fun thing about this character, and maybe it relates to Roger Corman, is that he's a guy that keeps dreaming and keeps making them and keeps really loves making movies, and he loves his family, and this is his last shot to do one with the kids. And
Right.
As they're making this very low budget horror movie, a body shows up on set, and that's when things go south.
That's when things get freaky.
So, in terms of the real family that's behind the Family Movie, this seems like an extreme way to get time with each other. You could have just gone to Puerto Vallarta,
Oh my God, it's so true, right?
saved yourself a lot of cash, probably.
That's
I mean,
really
that's for sure.
funny and very, very true. I mean, I think that, I don't know, I think that families, well, I know parents struggle to stay relevant in their kids' lives, and this was a really good way to stay relevant in their lives. No, I'm only kidding. We had this idea, we kind of hatched this plan over COVID. Kevin and I were kind of slowly going insane, devout workaholics, and we were like, well, what if this lasts forever? And maybe we'll have to just make movies with the things we have here at the house. And so we had this idea that we would rope the kids into the possibility of it. And just the dream of it, we asked them if they were interested, and they said yes. So it was pretty incredible. And then we took we just had that germ of a prompt and an idea, and we gave it to some writers to pitch us some ideas. And Dan's was incredible and wonderful, and so that was the beginning.
So, in terms of that movie that Angelina Jolie directed about her and Brad Pitt playing a marital couple with issues, how meta did this get here? Because I imagine the potential for art to imitate life and life to imitate art here.
Oh
it's
my
kind of off the
God.
charts.
It went real. It went ham. Yeah. Things that happened during the filming of the movie. I actually, I don't know if you see the movie, my character is like, secretly has an offer for a TV show that she's going to go do, and she doesn't tell her family that she's going to have to leave before they're done.
Wait, did this happen?
So midway through the movie, I got an offer to do a movie and was trying to work out the schedule. And I was like, you are fucking kidding me. This is crazy. But anyways, no, it didn't end up happening. I didn't leave. So yeah, it had a happy ending, but it definitely was life imitating art from day one. It's crazy.
How are you keeping the lines from getting blurred to the point where you were not, at each other's throats?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we had some conversations before we started shooting. First with Kyra and me talking about co-directing and I did just the boundaries kind of around that, and then with the kids, we just said, listen, we gotta stay respectful of each other, and there's no bad ideas, and let's let everybody have their process, and it's a collaboration, all that kind of stuff. One thing that we did that I think was really helpful was that we got a coach, and I am not somebody who likes a coach, to say the least. An acting
He doesn't
coach.
like direction.
I don't like direction.
Really,
so,
rather.
Yeah, but we had this great acting coach that Sosie and Kyra had worked with before. Travis hadn't done that much acting, so he was totally down to be working with this woman. And while we were in Texas, we would sit in the living room. She'd come on Zoom, and we'd run some of the scenes, because there are some very long and kind of intense scenes in that involve all four of us. So we would work on those with her, and I think that was really helpful in terms of just kind of leveling the playing field a little bit. So it wasn't
totally.
like, mom and dad are going to tell you what to do, kids.
Yeah.
I imagine that, if it's just a game night at the house, that's one kind of dynamic. It's a arts and crafts weekend at the Bacon family household. That's a whole other dynamic. But when you're making a movie together, that's something else entirely. And I can imagine that when you're collaborating on that level as a family, where you really are the four of you involved in this, it's something else entirely. I'm just wondering if there was things that you learned about each other as a family unit as this went on. Did you start to appreciate what the other brought in a way that maybe you didn't when you're just kind of around the house?
I mean, I'll just say that, I always have respected the kids, but you don't really get to see your adult children behaving in the world. And watching them on set and just seeing the way their kindness, their respect for other people, their understanding of the process, there's no way that you don't come to set and have highs and lows emotionally, but you don't bring those to set. You really try to just stay pretty even keeled, and they totally did the whole time. Plus, they're just such lovely humans. Also, I respect them both so much as artists. I mean, Travis, I've been working with as a collaborator, as a composer on my movies for years, and he's incredible. But I didn't know, we didn't know if he could act, and he did a great job. And Sosie, I mean, my God, I think she's so incredible. So, I mean, it was just it was really, you just admire their work ethics, et cetera.
Yeah, and that goes back the other way, too. I think just, I'd be tired after shooting one scene, and these guys would shoot about 3 of them and then be sitting there for an extra 12 hours directing everybody else. And, just seeing the amount of time and hard work and everything they put into it day to day was really inspiring.
Well, plus you've got action scenes. I don't think that's a spoiler.
Yes.
Yes, that maybe your character takes a slight amount of ass.
There's an arc there that involves some ass kicking. Yeah.
We showed had a great stunt coordinator who was a guy who had been in the business for a really long time, and we had sort of assumed that for Travis's fighting stuff that chances are we probably would need a double, and he went and did a little check Travis out, and he came back and he said, no double. He doesn't need a double. The people he's hitting need doubles, but he does not need one.
And we had this idea of dance sequence in the movie. We were like, we don't know if this is going to work, but I mean, this is the thing. Sosie is, always sending us stuff about TikTok dances and stuff like that. And then we were like, well, let's just shoot it and see if it works. And then Sosie, came
I'm an
in.
amateur choreographer.
Did the
Choreographed the dance for us.
crack choreography.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the dance sequence for a second. Because first off, my research team told me that you were in a movie where you danced a bunch once.
Quicksilver.
Quicksilver, yeah, right. And when you see the film, it's a kind of fleeting moment where I don't want to give away what you're doing, but
Yeah.
you're doing something together as a family, and then suddenly
You can say that it involves a wood chipper.
I don't even want to go that far.
No,
I
okay.
feel like even that's a spoiler.
Okay, take that out. Take that out.
And then suddenly you see them break into a really wonderful choreographed dance, and you're like, what the hell is it? And then it kind of cuts back to the action. But then you get to the post-credit sequence, which is really sweet and wonderful, and you see home movies, and you kind of see these kids growing up, and then it warms your heart. And then you understand that they've been practicing this dance for a while. There's numerous rehearsals that we see, and maybe again, talking about an arc, you start to see the arc of this dance come together.
Yeah.
So this was your idea that you were just gonna.
It wasn't my idea, but they texted me like 2 days before I started packing up to drive to Texas. And they were like, I don't know if this is gonna make it in the movie, but if you want to maybe choreograph this dance. So obviously I spent like 20 hours trying to figure out what to do in this dance. I like cherry picked different moves spent a lot of time on the internet, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then cobbled this dance together. I'm not a dancer. I think I took ballet when I was 4. But anyways,
You're a great dancer.
Thank you. I came up with it, and then we started the process of learning it. We did several dance rehearsals at the house.
Oh my
at the
God.
house.
Weeks,
And then
weeks.
of course South by we did a little taster of it, so we had more dance rehearsals. I mean, it's really like for a pretty rudimentary dance, we spent a lot of time working on it. You're not wrong.
I'm glad you brought up boundaries, and please feel free to give me your insurance information at the end of this session. But you guys, the two of you have collaborated a bunch over the years. You directed Kyra in Loverboy, I think it was like 20 years ago, something like that, 25 years ago. You've done episodes of The Closer. You've directed him in City by the Hill, I believe, and you are a prolific TV director, so you've done a bunch of that. But it's one thing I would think to direct somebody as an actor, and another to be a couple where you have to share directorial duties. So how were you sort of keeping those boundaries in place? How permeable was that line between the personal and the professional?
I mean, I could say that, it was interesting because it took us so many years to get this thing made that we had discussed everything. I mean, from the time we just had the first conversation about it, every night we would just talk about things, look at movies. We go and buy, get little figures in a hobby store and start, blocking things out, learning different sort of like blocking and shot listing apps and talking about DP. I mean, and working on the script. We worked on it like hours and hours and hours because that was like 4 years of prep, and it wasn't like it was a crazy lift. I mean, actually, in a lot of ways, it was really helpful because we both have big parts in the movie. But I have scenes but she's not in. So she doesn't have to put a costume on. She can come to work. She doesn't have to go through hair and makeup. She can...
Best days
Yeah,
ever.
the best days. Be by the monitor, give me notes, come in, work with the DP, and then that can flip on the days that she has a big scene, and I don't have to put on the costume, and that's really helpful in this case.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I think it was really like 95% great.
Go on. About that 5%.
I'm going to say what it is.
Okay, say
So
it.
yeah, I just can't help being bossy sometimes. I just
Oh my
get.
God, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I just can't help it. I get bossy and I mansplain.
Yeah, right.
I'm owning it.
There it is.
And it always starts with 3 words. Here's the thing.
And here's the thing about that is that we had a conversation before we started, and I sometimes had to remind you that we have a male voice bias, right? Everybody does. Everyone pays more attention to a man's voice, And I think that it is literally like a biological thing. It's just what we women have to deal with. And so I think that it was important for me to say, it's really important that everyone is heard, and I'm heard most of all. No, I'm only kidding. But that everyone is heard, and that they will gravitate to asking you the questions, listening to what you say, and that it's important. Like, we always have to bring it back to the two of us. And I also think that most of the time we had really like planned everything out so well. It was rare that we hadn't planned things out. So a lot of that stuff you got to do off set without a million eyes watching you.
Yeah, and speaking of the eyes, what's interesting about it, and we already knew this because of having directed Kyra, her directing me, is when you go onto a set, a crew generally looks and goes, "Oh boy, this is a husband and wife. This is going to get bad." They're razor focused on whether or not there's any kind of tension between the two of you. But then you multiply that by how are they with their children, and how are the children with each other. So we do have a kind of responsibility. What?
She said, I didn't even think about that. I was
you
like,
did?
you didn't?
Oh,
I
yeah.
did.
But we all feel like we have this responsibility to say, okay, everyone just we're going to be okay. We've been married long before this movie. We've been parents to these children for, 30-something years. We're going to create a world where you're going to watch that we know how to work together. And you can establish that in, I don't know, how long does it take?
Really fast. A day.
Addie, how long does it take? Like a day.
We have a crew member here. Stand
Yeah.
up.
Stand up, Addie.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare, right, Addie?
Let's not drag her into your family business here. I would think after raising kids, too, directing a movie together, it's got to be a snap, right? Like, it's just like raising kids, except the crafty's better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, kind of. I mean, look, the thing is that, like, it's a movie. Like,
Right.
No, but I see what you're saying. Like, there could also be some like the crew's kind of like, and we're gonna have to watch like weird, awkward family dynamics that make us cringe, or like, you know what I mean?
It's gonna waste time.
Yeah, it's gonna waste time. Yeah, but I think we all are. We're workaholics. We're super professional. We had so much fun getting this done together.
Yeah. My kid used to do a thing when she was very young where if I told her she couldn't do something, she'd go to her mom and then,
course.
why are you eating ice cream? Well, mom said it was okay. So were they doing this where they were splitting in terms of direction? No. So they're like, I didn't have to play it this way because Dad said.
Well, Dad told me, or you would come up and be like, "Hey, can you change this?" I'm like, "Well, I was doing that, but then Dad told me to do that, so no."
Maybe you guys could figure this out and give us some direction.
Don't involve me.
How was it being directed by your parents?
It was fine for me. I mean, I'm so new to the acting space that I really don't have much ego for it.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple times where a note was backed up with, 35 years of other trauma. But other than that.
Get in line.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Harder to take, let me ask you a question. Is it harder to take direction on the acting or harder to take direction on the score?
I mean, I don't know. I think I could have an emotional response to either one of them, but I didn't really. With the score situation, like for this project particularly, all your notes were really good, and they just made it better. And
It depended on whether the note was good or bad.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Like I don't really remember pushing back on too much, except for maybe if it was just sort of a technical aspect. And oftentimes I find in those situations it's like it's easier to just do the correction rather than, it takes less time to just do the correction and let the work speak for itself if it's going to work or not, rather than having a prolonged conversation about why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I felt really awkward in the love scene with you and Liza. I gotta say, I was like, oh my God, poor Travis. It's like the first time he's ever done like a kissy face scene with somebody, and his parents are right there.
Well, I mean,
I was like, oh
to
God,
be fair,
poor
it could
thing.
be worse. There could be a very intimate scene between the two parents in the film that the kids then have to witness.
Correct.
Thank
Hold
God
on.
that doesn't happen.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
had
wait.
to do the previs for that.
She did the
I had to
previs,
film
yeah.
the previs
Oh,
for
yeah,
that.
that's
I was
right.
like, it was just a regular afternoon. I was off. I was trying to enjoy
Day off.
myself. They were like,
No.
hey, can you come do the previs for this? I was like, Jesus, okay.
Well, at least you didn't have to write music to it.
Yeah, that's true.
You had
That's
to
true.
see it over and over
Yeah.
again.
Oh, my
yeah,
God.
it's funny. I mean, you
Hit
know,
all the beats.
yeah. I mean, in the previs, I will say that we were 100%
They were
dressed.
fully clothed,
Sosie was
thankfully.
not having to
Yeah, it was.
film us naked.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Before we go, it occurred to me after I'd seen the film actually that first off, I'm still traumatized from the original Friday the 13th.
Oh, good.
Because of your scene in it, and I check every bed to make sure there's no arrows underneath it. But you
typical
guys,
thing.
right? You guys have a long history with horror. You were in the first Friday the 13th. Obviously, I think most people associate you with Smile, or maybe they know you as one of the Manson family that you played in a movie. You were in The Possession. So you guys know horror, and you've worked in horror films, and horror films are often maligned even though they're very popular. So I'm just wondering, what do you think is the appeal to horror movies to an audience, and what's the appeal to being in them as an actor?
Who wants to
I
start?
think
Travis
the
is
appeal
good.
is stakes.
Yeah.
It's stakes. It's the highest of stakes. It's life and death. Travis?
I think exactly that, and I think part of the appeal is how unappealing it is to some people.
Oh, wow.
And I've had like,
deep.
and I've thought about this because, you know, I've thought about like, when I meet a person that's like, I really don't do horror movies, I'm so touched that that person exists. Because what's it for otherwise? Like if it's not pushing boundaries and it's not scaring people and it's not extreme enough for, you know, it's too extreme for certain people to view, then I think that's a slam dunk win in the genre.
Good.
Yeah, and as an actor, I think I think it's really fun, important, and challenging because ultimately, in a really good horror film, it generally hits almost every single major emotional response that a human has, whether that's fear, lust, humor, love, anything of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're big fans of going to the cinema, and you know, I grew up. First horror movie I saw was Vincent Price's House of Wax in 3D, and I'll never forget it. And there was you know, girls there, and you know.
Yes, he's going there. He's going there.
Yeah.
It's happening.
And it was a shared experience in that room of like, we all jumped, right? We all jumped as a group, even strangers, people that I didn't know. And like, that's why we want to go to the movies, is so we can share something, you know, together. And if it's a comedy, you know, let's all, you know, be there together laughing at it. If it's a horror movie, let's all be there, you know, jumping out of our seats and you know, having that enjoyment. If it's a, you know, a romantic comedy or a tragedy, whatever, you know, you hear sniffling around the theater, it's such a cool feeling. So I think just to feel, it just is one of the ways that we can feel something in the movies.
Well, I think we've made a lot of progress today.
Yeah.
And, you know, lots to think about for our session next week at the same time.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you guys so
That's
much for
your
being
time.
here.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Great.